I'm Clarence.
And I'm DJ Nuna.
And you're listening to Up in the Air,
a podcast exploring the creative, social, and political world around us.
Featuring conversations with our lovely friends and special guests each episode.
Stay up in the air and come float with us. Hello everyone, welcome to Up in the Air. Thank you so much for joining us. We have an amazing guest today. We have Unprint here with us. Unprint is a really awesome sustainable streetwear brand that is queer and trans BIPOC owned and designed by, and we were really fascinated by their unique pieces. They recently had a drop on the 13th of February called Sex and Stuff. And it's all about using used finds and using really unique textures like bleach or hand screen printing to create these awesome pieces. So this is actually our first time interviewing someone that's in like the fashion and streetwear brand. So yeah, we're really excited to talk to you and just hear about your creative process and learn more about the streetwear industry as well. But yeah, how are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you for the very nice introduction. I've never heard anyone introduce me like that before. I'm doing well. I'm not really a morning person, so I woke up probably like 30 minutes ago. I have a cup of coffee and I'm an open book for y'all.
Yes, thank you for getting up early for us. We really appreciate it. But
yeah, I feel like every morning or every time we do an episode, I'm like, this is the earliest I've been up all week. So. But yeah, again, thank you so much for joining us, and it's a pleasure to meet you virtually. But just to start things off, could you maybe tell us a little bit about your brand and anything that we might have missed?
Yeah, I think you got the gist of it. So I had this idea. It was before the pandemic, so things were like normal, quote unquote. And a lot of brands have been doing this too, like smaller independent brands that I've been following on Instagram. They do things like embroider onto thrifted clothes, or they just, upcycle by sewing them into different silhouettes. And so that inspired me because I had a lot of clothes. And I noticed a lot of my friends also have a lot of clothes. And so I'm like, well, okay, what can we do with this just like basic t-shirt? I don't want to just give it away. I don't want to throw it out. I hate wasting. And that's not just with clothes too. I hate wasting anything. So I work in the creative industry, and like I work with a lot of designers. I see their designs are beautiful, but they usually just live online, like in their portfolio, or they live like in their Instagram posts. They have a separate design portfolio or design Instagram. And it's great, it's beautiful, but I wanted something that could like walk. I wanted it to be wearable. I wanted it to like go out into the world, and someone might compliment it, and they don't even have to see it online. And that's where the idea came from.
That's awesome. I think it's really like, because Clarence and I are also visual designers, so a lot of our work ends up being digital and, like you said, stays online. So it's really beautiful to hear you're able to transfer those into physical pieces. And even just like looking through some of your posts, like all the pieces are really unique and are like individually curated. So I think that's great that you can really embody like style, because I think fashion is all about expression and telling a story too. And
Definitely.
You're able to like create an immediate connection with someone if someone like compliments it or is like, oh, that's a dope piece, like where is that from? So that's super cool to hear. Yeah. And it's wild. So you started this during the pandemic?
Yeah. I didn't mean to, because like obviously like I didn't know it was coming.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be great. Like I am privileged enough to like work inside my home, and this whole work from home thing just gave me a little more time, gave me a little more freedom to start this side gig. So yeah, that's been fun. It's taken up some space, but like I have like a lunch break. I can I can print a couple shirts and then or ship a couple shirts and I'm good to go.
I love that. No, yeah, I'm curious as to how like quarantine has impacted your creative process, and where like you seek inspiration, because I know it can be difficult, like working from home and then being stuck inside. It can be challenging to, yeah, I guess
Mhm.
feel inspired sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Quarantine definitely gave me more time,
Mm.
so that's a plus. Um, what it did in terms of like my inspiration and creativity, I've definitely been doing a lot more introspection.
Mm.
So I don't know if people notice, but like I'm obviously a little more reserved in like my privacy, but if you actually read about my designs and like take a look at my designs and look further past the actual like visual of it, there are stories about myself,
Mm.
and they might be just like small short like quirky stories. Like one of them is just like about this nude beach I used to go to, um, but these are like little pieces about myself that I've collected, and turned into designs, and now people are wearing it.
Yeah.
So um so I think COVID, I'm not sure if it impacted these designs. You know, like if I was outside of COVID, I might have designed the same thing, but it definitely made me a little more introspective about like what
Mm-hmm.
stories I want to put out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's
For sure.
beautiful. I feel like yeah, I think the most kind of successful sort of streetwear brands always have that really strong foundation and like strong story and narrative behind it. So that's
Hmm.
terrific to hear. But I was also curious to know, because Jubilee, she found your work through TikTok, and
Hmm.
like what is that balance like for you with social media? Because I know that you talked about, you're pretty reserved and sort of a private person, and then you also have a lot of like outreach on social media. And so I'm wondering, what is that balance like for you?
It's terrifying.
Yeah. For real.
um, well, I didn't expect it, but I knew TikTok was obviously like you just had to have it, especially when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to anything related to fashion.
Yeah.
Um, so I started one, got a following, started posting a little more, and I found the ones that like had the top of my face did really successful. um, and yeah, it has been challenging because I see everywhere like, okay, you have to be personal, you have to be intimate with your following, like they want to see your
Mhm.
face, they want to connect it to the brand. So I've been having trouble with that.
Mhm.
I try to hide some of my face, and I don't know if people really care, but for me, it at least gives me that sense of safety,
Mhm.
just because you know these videos, they tend to be widely circulated,
Mhm.
and you just for some reason, I don't know, like I'm sure a lot of people feel like this, but just being that known or that seen
Mhm.
tends to scare me. Um,
Mhm.
so I've definitely found ways like around it, using the mask or not even showing my face.
Mhm.
Um, so I have like little, you know, little challenges like that.
Mhm.
Um, but besides that, like it's been great. It's been fun. TikTok definitely like pulled through when it comes to my collections. So I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think Clarence and I were just talking about how we love TikTok because it is such a good channel for us to connect with like smaller businesses or um like small talent as well that are like on their way to being a bit more known. And I think it's a lot more accessible, and I think especially like the audience that's created or the following, I feel like
Hmm.
is really good. Like you end up on like streetwear talk or like queer talk
Hmm.
because there's like also really harmful sides of TikTok too.
Oh my
Like
gosh,
yeah,
yes.
like I was telling Clarence this, but I made it. I don't make TikToks regularly, but one of my TikToks ended up on like white male Trump TikTok, and I was
Oh my God.
terrified
What did you
because
post?
it was hilarious. I posted this video of me saying, ugly men forget that they're ugly after they date one pretty girl. And then all these comments were like,
Wow.
MAGA, like sexist, but
Mhm.
that's great to hear. And I actually read, I know,
Yeah.
sorry, gotta
Man, go
Anyways,
segue.
for it.
anyways.
But I did read this one article recently about it was by Marietta, and I will link it in the description. But it was a beautiful piece about being BIPOC, and also the author identified as a woman, and how that really impacts your identity as an artist, because you're constantly being perceived in a certain way, and there's a lot more pressure, or there's like all the other connotations
Mm.
with that other people assume. But I know that your brand, yeah, is about being owned and designed by queer, trans, BIPOC. But I was curious as to how that identity has impacted your brand and your work, and even your creative process.
Yeah, for sure. So I identify as a non-binary person of color.
Hmm.
And to be more specific, I'm Korean American.
Hmm.
And so obviously I cannot claim the entire spectrum.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the collaborations come into play,
Hmm.
because a lot of my network is not representative of the QT BIPOC spectrum or
Hmm.
demographic.
Yeah.
And so and like especially because like I am in the creative industry, like I work with these people, um
Hmm.
and it it just seems a little restrictive, especially when your leadership team is not representative of you.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, well, I don't want to be like that. Like, oh, like they're
Right.
great leaders, of course, but like they're like, what are the pieces that we're missing?
Hmm.
um and so I just like started this, like a lot of it comes from myself. And for right now, like I'm using my social network to to collaborate. And so I don't know if you saw, but the last piece or the last collection had a good friend of mine, another queer artist, and she she designed that Sailor Moon. I don't know
Hmm.
if you saw the entire collection, but there was
Hmm.
one with the Sailor Moon, and it was based off of like this, like you know, painting from like the 1600s.
Oh,
Super
wow.
cool, super dope. People like freaking loved it. People are
Mhm,
all over TikTok.
mhm.
Um, some people hated it. That's fine too. Uh, and so like slowly but surely, like I'm collecting these designers. Um, like, and because of the popularity of like the past collections, like even more people want to collaborate the next
Right.
collection. More people than I can probably like handle. So
Mhm,
like now I got this lineup, and like they're all from super diverse backgrounds,
mhm.
and it's amazing. And probably like with your podcast you get to meet all these amazing and diverse artists. Like I get to do the same, and I don't want to be selfish in any way. Like I this is definitely something that I want. Like I want people to come up with
Right.
their own designs, and I
Mhm,
want to be that outlet too.
mhm.
So that's definitely been a goal of mine from the beginning,
Yeah.
to continue to grow, like using collaborations, and continue to uh, be the creative outlet for people.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I think that's amazing that you're using your platform to, yeah, create other opportunities for other queer artists. And yeah, Clarence and I, we really, when we talk to different creatives in different mediums, we do like to ask, like, what does representation mean from your perspective? And I think what you're saying is really important, because I think a lot of clothing brands or fashion brands often perceive representation as like the visual side of things, like having models that are reflective of different people of different backgrounds. But really,
Hmm.
it's also all about the behind the scenes, like who are the designers on the team, who are the
For sure.
photographers that you're using, like who are you hiring. So
Hmm.
I think that's definitely really important. And you mentioned that you identify as Korean American, and I was also curious as to how that has impacted your work, like if you have a lot of knowledge in like the Korean streetwear industry. I'm Korean American, but I don't know much about it. Um, but yeah, I'm curious as to if that's had any influence on your work.
Yeah, of course. Like there's definitely that dichotomy, like being Korean American, and so I think we are different from being Korean.
Right.
And when it comes to streetwear, I don't know much about it. All I see are like those like slow motion TikTok videos,
Yeah.
which looks super cool, but I don't know if
Yeah.
people dress like that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And they definitely don't in America. So, and that's
Right.
like kind of like where I'm selling from. Um, so when it comes to like the inspiration factor, I don't really like post or not post. I don't really design just like specifically around my Korean heritage.
Mm-hmm.
There are elements like that are trickled here and there, um, but not. There hasn't been a design that encompasses my heritage as a whole, and
Mm-hmm.
nor do I feel obligated to create one because
Yeah.
it's not all about me. Like there are definitely
Mm-hmm.
like parts of me, my stories in there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but no, not yet. Nothing. Nothing dedicated to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I think when it comes to inspiration, definitely little bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have some Hangul in there, but I don't like make it about Korea. I don't make it
Mm-hmm.
about being Korean.
Yeah,
And
for
I
sure.
Yeah, just a little bit of design elements here and there.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation that has been revolving around, even like in our past episodes, is this idea that like representation, while yes, like your body of work is created by a person of color or one of these groups, it's not solely about that. And it's not solely about like you're like carrying the weight of your like entire
Of my
heritage on your back,
immigrant family.
right?
Yeah.
It's like your
Yeah, it
family's
doesn't have to
honor.
be. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like it's
Mhm.
um I think that's definitely been a struggle since the beginning of like this this like revolution is like, does
Right.
it always have to be about struggle? Can it
Mm-hmm.
just be about celebration? Can it just be
Mm-hmm.
about inspiration? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that one thing your brand is highlighting a lot is sustainability. And we're
Mm.
just curious as to, when it comes to creating these new pieces, a lot of times like you're kind of reusing materials, and do the materials sort of inform the design, or is it more of like the design is kind of like what is the balance there between the material and the design beforehand?
Yeah. Usually like I come up with the designs beforehand,
Mm,
just because the shopping and like the donations take like kind of a while to trickle in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so like I really don't know what I'm gonna get. But when I do start like going out into thrift stores, or like asking my friends and family for pieces, I usually tell them just like basics. Basics are always good.
mhm,
Um, the number one thing that I need are pieces that can be laid flat. Because
mm.
with the have you guys screen printed before?
I've screen printed once.
Yeah, on like
Yeah.
paper or
I actually did it on a tote bag, so it was like super
tote
flat.
bag. Yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if there are buttons or like grommets
Right.
or like strings or anything, like it makes it super difficult. It makes it kind of chunky. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are gaps in like the actual ink. Um, so it just depends on the amount of like other like materials on it too. Like if it's like a chunky sweater, like that's not gonna end up well.
Yeah.
So just flat. And the good thing like streetwear is well, it was originally just like super basic tees, so that always helps well.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, I think there's always also a conversation around sustainability, and how it is oftentimes sometimes like inaccessible because brands like I think I'm not super versed in sustainable brands, but like um like Everlane or Aritzia, like they have really like high
Mhm.
priced items, and then when you look
Mhm.
into sustainability and like their full process, like certain parts are still like unethical. But I
Yeah,
think what you're
you
doing
can
about
never win.
yeah, right? Like I think what you're doing, like using pieces from your friends or family, or using pieces from the thrift store, because there's a lot of waste produced from like even the Goodwill, like a lot of it ends up going to waste. So I
Mhm.
think that's a great approach to creating a sustainable brand. But yeah, I think Clarence and I are also curious as to what projects you have in the future, if you have any drops coming up. Um, yeah, is there anything on the burner right now?
Definitely like like since the beginning of like designing my first collection, I already had like ideas popping up for my third collection. It's like this constant like chase where I can never finish one thing without thinking about another.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
um, but that's the benefit of being creative. You just jot it down and you get back
Mhm.
to it, and then you
Right.
scrap it, and then you start over.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I do have things in the back burner. Drop three will have a couple collaborators, and again, it will uh, have stories from myself, from my past, um, and there will be a theme. And I'm never doing pants again, so people cannot expect that.
Oh,
They
that's
should
tough
not
with
expect
like
that.
it's not super flat because of like the seams and like
It's
it's
less about that. Actually, jeans are super fun to print on, and they
mm,
turn out really well. But the sizing is what makes it super difficult.
Mhm.
right.
So, with t-shirts you get small, medium, large, like that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But with jeans, there are just so many. There's, people are tall, people are short. It's like it's all
Yeah.
that.
I saw on
Um,
your Instagram Q&A that you're like, how many sizes of women's pants are there? Because there's so many, and
yeah,
it's so I don't even know what pants I wear, honestly.
it changes. Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's another thing. It's like it depends on like a lot of people responded. It depends on the brand. I'm like, well, that is unfortunate because the brands that I get are all different.
Right,
Everything's
right.
one of one, so it's just a little too difficult.
Mhm.
Um, but tops are always good.
Mhm.
Um, so I will be dropping a third collection. I don't know when. That's a great thing about having your own brand is you get to be flexible and
Right.
procrastinate.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it'll come.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I want to just go through all your stuff and just like, I'm excited to see what you're going to come up with next, but I'm also interested in sort of like your process from start to finish. Like when you're building out this collection, I know that you said you have a lot of ideas already, but
Mhm.
what is it in terms of maybe its timeline and kind of like how many iterations do you go through for designs?
Iterations, yeah. So okay, at the beginning, it's a sketchbook. At the beginning, it's just like a quick, uh, template of like a T-shirt or a sweatshirt, and then I start drawing onto that because like if you just come up with a design first and then paste it on, it might not be as good. And there are a lot of places that you can print onto a T-shirt. Like, what if you want to print on the sleeve, or what if you want to print like on the corners or like on the collar? So I think the actual build of the clothes is important too, because I think a lot of successful brands take that into consideration, where it's not just a print on the front or a print on the back. Um, it kind of weaves into the actual build,
Mhm.
and it's those little details that I think people will appreciate. So I, take a template, I design something, and of course it depends on the theme, it depends on like my story. um if I like the design, like it's super rough, but if I like it, then I start going into Photoshop, I start going into Illustrator, and I either make a collage of it, or I design from scratch, and then you mock it up, you use a mock-up template. you know I'm sure you're all familiar with that.
Yep.
And then
Yeah.
that's when you can actually see if it'll look good. Like it's super cool that you can just like quickly do that. There's
Right.
a lot of toolkits out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if it looks good from there, then I'll do a test print. Uh, the whole, I don't have to go through the whole emulsion process, but it's, you need a darkroom and everything. So it does take a while. And so I do want my first iteration to always be perfect. And if
Mm-hmm.
it's not, then I go back and do it again. But I really try to get it down the first time just because of how long the process is.
Right.
Um, and then I don't know if you all saw, but I had this TikTok where I was showing off like my failure designs, and a lot of those are like my test prints too. So it's my first round, and sometimes I'm unhappy with it, and that means I have to go back. Um, but yeah, it's been a lot of trial and error, even with the designing part.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel like with a lot of brands and like streetwear and just I think a lot of people want to start something, and so definitely that
Hmm.
like having that perseverance, like doing all those trials and like I feel like when you talked about the mocking it up, like I can imagine like for Jubilee and I, we both, have done a lot of mock-ups and whatnot, but you get like those jitters, like when you see it kind of
Yeah,
going
it
along
looks
the
good.
curvature of the shirt or whatever. But that's really awesome to hear.
Hmm.
I was kind of curious also, like are there any brands or independent brands or big ones also that you sort of look up to or look for inspiration from?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Um, I mean, there's so many. You can probably just look at my Instagram and see who I follow, and whoever I follow is probably inspiring me in some
Mm,
way. Um, let's see. I think Basket Case definitely. I don't know if y'all heard of Basket Case. That's
mm,
definitely one. In terms of smaller brands, oh yeah, there's a small LA shop that's pretty much doing the same thing as I'm doing, except like at 100 times better quality. They are called Better with Age. So that's
mhm.
another one, and a super cool streetwear brand. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they're actually a good example of like taking the build into consideration. So they print along like arms and sleeves and
Mm-hmm.
like legs, leg sleeves, leg pants, whatever they're called. Um,
My bad.
uh, no, you're good. A lot of design brands, or not brands, design accounts.
Mm,
Uh, there's so many. A lot of them are focused on typography,
Mm-hmm.
which has
right.
never been my strong suit. So that's why I follow so many.
Yeah, I feel that.
So yeah, yeah. Definitely just take a look at my Instagram
Mm,
following list, and you'll probably find a bunch that you'll also follow too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
yeah, I just was curious because I know that like with for Julie and I when we're doing designs, like a lot of times we're kind of overstimulated with all these different
Hmm.
inspirations. Like we go on Pinterest and there's just a billion things, and so
Yeah.
it almost becomes hard to even know what as an individual what we want. And
Hmm.
I was just kind of wondering in terms of like, do you ever run into that problem where there's so many like so much stuff out there to be inspired by that
Hmm.
you kind of lose the focus of what you're originally trying to hit the mark on?
Yes. Yes, I do. Because there's so much good stuff out there, and you want to take it all and you want to boil it down to one design, and I don't think that's possible. Um, so the great thing is I can come up with as many designs as I want, and maybe I'll take inspiration from this one account's brand, and this one of their designs, and I'll apply it to one of my designs. But can I apply like 50 people's designs into one? Can I boil it down to like one of my designs? No. I
Yeah.
can take pieces and, kind of piece them together.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's you definitely um I definitely do get overstimulated.
Mm,
But I think that's where the prioritization comes into play, and I think I've been doing a pretty good job of like what exactly do I want to take from this inspiration, and can I use it for next time, or can I save it? You know, like I'm not running out of time. You can always save things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Do you think that you find inspiration from like mediums other than just graphic design or like for I think
Um,
I find some inspiration from like music a lot of times, like I guess the feeling of it or
oh,
like it has some sort of
yeah.
texture to it. Like do you have that experience as well?
Yes, I do actually. I I've been listening to a lot of classical music recently. I
Oh.
think I just like my ears just need like a cleanse, and so for some reason I thought that would help. Uh, so I did find this emotional piece, or it was emotional to me, and I think it's Beethoven. So I think that'll come into play. Obviously, like it sounds weird. You can't just like design from Beethoven. Like I don't even know what that means. But I think the emotional aspect will come into play, and I might even like make a little video about it using the actual song. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. I think it's great that you're able to have this process like digitally, like using like Illustrator and Photoshop, and then you're also able to balance it with like hands-on design experience and like hand screen printing it, and like even going to the
Hmm.
thrift shops and like finding those pieces. I think it's really important because Clarence and I think we're trying to find other mediums outside of just digital design because
Hmm.
it can lead to a lot of like burnout or
Hmm.
creative blocks. Like Clarence is into photo. Well, I'm also into photo, but like I've gotten into like crocheting, like just having other things like to do with my hands to kind of fuel that creative energy and stuff. Um, but yeah.
Definitely, and
Mhm.
yeah, there's like a salvo of like different mediums all over TikTok too. So it's like
Yeah.
definitely get inspired by that as well.
Hmm.
And the burnout thing, definitely, yeah, that's so real. And luckily, there are so many different steps in this process that once I start feeling burnout from one thing, I get to feel burnout from the next. But at least,
For real.
you change it up. So,
Mhm.
and then once you get back to the same step in the cycle, you feel kind of new. You feel refreshed, and
Yes.
you know what
This
you're doing.
this might
Mhm.
be maybe slightly personal, but I was wondering like what do you do for self-care? Because I think like a lot of creative people I don't know struggle with this, like to find the time to take a break from your work and like you said that
Mhm.
you have a lot of ideas and like it's almost constantly running and I was curious like how do you step away from it for a little bit, I guess.
Um, that's a good question.
I was
Listen,
afraid
It's
you were gonna say that. Respect.
yeah, like that's something I definitely struggle with, like during like the actual process of printing and designing. It's like I kind of forget about myself and I just focus on the output. I'm like, I just have to get to this. Like I want to see it on a shirt and then I want to wear it. And like I just kind of bulldoze through my life until that point. And but after that point, and like after everything sells, like there's this huge weight off my shoulders, and so like that's kind of like where I'm at right now, and it feels
Mm,
great. um like I have more time, like I'm just casually like shipping things, and I think that's when I start like thinking more about self-care. Like I'm not like I'm gonna get my lashes done like after this, like
yes.
I can
yes. Get
I can finally like clean. Like the cleanup process is messy, but it is also therapeutic. Like finally
Oh
right.
just
yeah,
like
for sure.
putting things
It's
away.
like when you like you're working on a project for a long time and you just look around your room, it's like reflective
Hmm.
of your mental state, you
Yeah,
know?
or closing a bunch of tabs.
Oh my
Oh
god, the
yes.
best.
Yeah.
Oh god. Same.
So there's that. But it's something that like I feel like a lot of creatives do struggle with,
Mhm,
and it's you have to interweave it. I haven't figured that out, that process. And
Mhm.
this is true for burnout at work too. Like you have to find you can't just like finish work and at the end of the day that's when your self-care is. Like a lot of experts have said, like you have to interweave it throughout your
Mhm.
day. Like take like a 5 minute like tea break, or take a walk outside. And a lot of people just don't do that, or they don't feel like they can do that, or it would be irresponsible.
Right.
And I think that's something that I need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, it feels great.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean that's real. I think um we're really ingrained like just in this capitalist society to be productive always, and that productivity also is like correlated with success. But
hmm
really, like I think yeah, I'm learning that self-care is also productive because it's serving myself and it's making everything else a lot more of a sustainable practice. Like, because
hmm
I definitely do that where like even right now my room is an absolute mess, and
hmm
I really wait until like this shit gets the messiest before I clean it up. So I'm trying to practice like cleaning it along the way instead of like after a long week of
yeah,
work, I'm just like looking around.
yeah,
Yeah. But
for
no, yeah,
sure.
interweaving is I'm with you on like learning that what that looks like.
Yeah, I, everyone needs to learn it. Like, it's like you, oh yeah, we have like this mindset where you work until you get your reward, and your reward could
Right.
be the self-care part, or like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And that's just, it makes you feel even worse, because it's like now you have no self-care that you have to get through, and that starts to feel like work.
Right.
So definitely
Mm-hmm.
gotta weave it into your life.
Yes. Um, all super valuable. Clarence and I, we're gonna reflect on how to do that after this.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I guess I didn't really give you examples of what I actually do for self-care.
oh,
Like now, yes, I'm gonna go actually like fix my face. I'm gonna get my lashes done. I'm gonna. It like a lot of it has to do with like hygiene.
yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
um like I did my nails again. Like my nails get really disgusting like after like during the printing process. Like a
Yeah.
lot of like paint gets under them. Um, I have more time to work out. Uh, and then like gym appointments. Yeah, just
Mhm.
simple stuff. It's the small things.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I definitely have to like go outside after a long project because you just feel like you've been, holed up, especially nowadays, but like you've been really just
hmm
cooped up in your room or in your space working. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's good to hear. I'm happy that you're able to do all that
Get your lashes
self-care.
done.
Yes. Yes, we're gonna do all of it. I'm gonna stop by like the Ordinary store in San Francisco if it's
Mhm.
open.
Yeah.
You know, I take the BART there instead of driving, so I get a little outside time too.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's all good.
Mhm. For
Actually, that kind of reminds me of another question I was thinking about. On your site it says that you're based in Oakland, I believe,
Mhm.
and I was wondering like how does Oakland and the community in the city influence sort of your work and I guess your drive as well behind the brand?
Um, I'm pretty new to Oakland, so I
Mm.
definitely can't claim that like I am 100% part of the community yet.
Mhm.
Like I was before this, I moved like right at the beginning of quarantine. And
Mhm.
so it still feels like I'm new to Oakland because I haven't really been able to explore it as well as I probably could have if
Mhm.
life was not a pandemic.
Mhm.
Um, but definitely, like for some reason, whenever I did visit Oakland when I was still living in San Francisco, I just felt like this like better sense of culture. And I know San Francisco in itself has a lot of culture, but where I was more of like downtown, and so like it just felt more of like this work vibe.
Mhm.
Um, but as soon as you kind of like step out of that downtown like bubble, you definitely get a little more sense of culture, and like who like the people in the neighborhoods and how they're all a little different. um because like before I used to live in the Mission, and like when I would go from my like downtown office to the Mission back home, I was this is totally different. Like people are different, and the vibe is different, like the buildings look different, or like houses. um so when it comes to Oakland, definitely, like I think, you know, like Oakland's different. Oakland's beautiful. Oakland's like spacious, and there are little pockets that are so unique.
Mhm.
Um, I can't say that it's influenced any of my design work yet,
Mm.
but it's something that I definitely need to go out and explore because it's been unfortunate how cooped up everyone's been um, for now. But
Mm.
I love Oakland.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. My brother lived, I think he also lived in the Mission for some time. And whenever we would visit, we'd always go all the way out to Oakland for like food, and so
Yeah, the food is
I'm
great.
totally with you on that. Like, kind of just, there are so many little pockets. And I guess it kind of, if anything, maybe it starts to like influence your work, like unknowingly, unconsciously, kind of you're talking about
Mhm.
these spaces and like, I don't know if this could be a larger metaphor for kind of this the way that you're using these other more unique spaces on like on t-shirts and like on other materials, but
Mhm.
Yeah, actually, one thing is I've been noticing a lot more graffiti around here,
mm,
and it might be because like I remember like during the riots and everything, a lot of the stores were boarded up, and
Mhm.
so people have been using like that boarded up space as more of like a canvas.
Right.
Um, and that has been amazing because it's like when you walk down like the street, it's like it's so colorful and like there's
mhm.
new pieces of graffiti like popping up everywhere. Actually, just around the corner, someone like really quickly did an amazing piece of Mittens Sanders. Um,
Oh,
like literally like a day after that whole meme like happened, I'm like, people are so freaking fast, and it looks so
it,
good.
it moves so fast.
Yeah. But it was, yeah, it's incredible. It's like,
Mhm.
the whole city is like your canvas. I don't think I noticed that as much in San Francisco just because, you know, when you're downtown, like all these
Right.
buildings are super corporate. So,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
that has definitely been inspiring.
Yeah. I think that Seattle is a little similar where if you go into the downtown, there's all these like skyscrapers and it feels pretty corporate. Like the Amazon spheres are there. But
Mhm.
then if you go into areas like Chinatown, there was like a lot of boarded up storefronts and they had like a huge like paint the town type of night where just a lot of they
Mhm.
invited a bunch of BIPOC artists to fill up all the fronts with murals and yeah,
Mhm.
I think it's um yeah, definitely relatable to be inspired by the city that you're in. And yeah, hopefully maybe you can come up to Seattle like when this is all over. I feel like there's a lot
I
of
love Seattle. Yeah,
oh yeah.
I've been before, and y'all go to what? WashU?
We go to University of Washington. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I've been like on that like street where there's a bunch of restaurants and everything. I
Yeah.
had some really good like hand pulled noodles. Yeah, that was cool.
Yes, that I think I know like Xi'an noodles, but yeah, I mean, okay, time flew.
Yes.
We're at the
Yes.
end of the episode, and Clarence and I just really enjoyed
Cool.
learning about your brand, and I know that we mentioned in the earlier parts of the podcast that we do a song of the week,
Hmm.
something that I know you mentioned Beethoven. I don't know if that's one that you
I wouldn't say it's the song of the week. That would be kind of sad.
like.
Um, I'm looking at my podcast, or not podcast playlist right now. It's actually Bach. Sorry, but let's see. This this song I've been listening to on repeat. It's called Fantasy featuring Jackie White. Um, and I don't know if I should link it to you because there's kind of like some like exclamation points in it and stuff, but it's
Yes.
Fantasy featuring Jackie White. It's a Korean song. It's super cute. It's got like a little bit of rap, and it's just a dope song. It's a little happy hype me up song.
Ah, yes. I want to listen to that. I feel like it's up my alley. But yes, we will yeah, we'll figure out with the exclamation points and everything what track name is. But yeah, Clarence, what's yours?
Oh man, I'm like going through my most recently liked songs on Spotify, but actually I was listening to NERD again. I like go through a cycle every once in a while, but Run to the Sun is my song of the week. I think it's kind of fitting for the weather that we have in Seattle. The sun is finally coming out. So
Oh, what kind of genre?
it's like alternative hip hop, I would say. Maybe on the
Cool,
edge
cool.
of electronic. It's, Pharrell, and it was more of his earlier music, so it's kind of, yeah, very experimental, but kind of based in hip hop as well. Yeah.
Mm.
Cool. I'll take a look.
Yes, yeah, we just got out of like a 3-day snowstorm in Seattle, so it's nice that it's sunny
Oh,
now. But yeah, my song of the week is called Dreams by Queen Naija and Lucky Day. I've for real had that on repeat, and it's something that's really blissful and makes me feel really free. That sounds so corny, but I feel like it's like it's called Dreams, but it for real is like really dreamy, and
oh, cool.
I like it. Yeah, I'll send it over to you. But yeah, this wraps up the pod. Unprint, it's been so great to chat with you and really learn about your story. And I'm super inspired by your creative process. And now, like when I'm looking through your pieces, I want to look for the little stories that you integrate into all your pieces. 'Cause that's
For
amazing,
sure.
beautiful. But it was great to meet you. And everyone, we will have all of Unprint's info in the description bar. And stay tuned for all the future drops. But yeah, thank you so much again. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you all next week. Sorry, I just
Thank you for having me.